In a packed military courtroom, the flash of cameras punctuated the tense atmosphere as she sat shackled. America's first female Navy SEAL sniper, now branded a fraud, a liar. The prosecution, led by the stern-faced Commander Westlake, relentlessly attacked her service record, whispers snaking through the gallery like venom as she maintained a stoic silence. Seemingly defeated, she watched as the judge allowed her public humiliation to continue, her once distinguished career crumbling before a room full of judging eyes. But then, a thunderous cadence of footsteps echoed from beyond the closed doors. A hush fell over the room as the heavy doors swung inward, every gaze snapping towards the entrance. From which city in the world are you watching this video today? A voice, likely from a pre-recorded message, cut through the silence before fading away. If you enjoyed the story and want to see more military dramas that honor our unsung heroes, please consider subscribing to our channel. The military courtroom at Naval Base San Diego felt suffocating despite the high ceilings and expansive windows that lined the walls. Harsh morning sunlight streamed through the glass, casting sharp angles of light onto the polished floor where Lieutenant Commander Severine Blackwood sat ramrod straight at the defense table. Military police had recently removed her handcuffs, leaving faint red marks circling her wrists, a silent testament to her current predicament, marks she pointedly ignored. Her impeccably pressed dark blue dress uniform hung perfectly on her lean frame, adorned with a surprisingly sparse array of ribbons for someone boasting her alleged service history. A thin, pale scar traced a path from her left temple down to her jawline, a permanent reminder of battles she was forbidden from discussing. Her regulation-length hair was pulled back with ruthless military precision, revealing a face that betrayed little of the inner turmoil raging beneath the surface. Her hazel eyes, usually bright and full of life, were now fixed straight ahead, revealing nothing of her thoughts. The gallery behind her was filled to capacity. High-ranking officers, their uniforms gleaming with medals and insignia that spoke of decades of dedicated service, occupied the front rows, their faces masks of stern disapproval. Behind them, journalists from every major news outlet scribbled furiously in their notebooks, their pens poised, ready to pounce on a story that intertwined military scandal with the explosive issue of gender politics. The remaining seats were occupied by curious spectators, many of them active-duty personnel who had been following the case ever since the San Diego Union Tribune branded her the SEAL imposter in a front-page exposé 3 weeks prior. The air hummed with hushed conversations and the occasional sharp click of a camera shutter from the press section. At the prosecution table, Commander Richard Westlake arranged his documents with theatrical precision, each movement calculated to project an aura of unwavering confidence and absolute control. 3 junior judge advocate general officers flanked him like a protective wall, passing notes back and forth and whispering tactical legal strategies. Westlake occasionally cast a predatory glance toward Steamy, his expression a chilling blend of satisfaction and barely concealed contempt, as if her conviction was a foregone conclusion. Lieutenant Commander Orion Apprentice sat beside Steamy, his jaw clenched tight with barely suppressed frustration. He leaned in close, his voice barely audible above the subdued murmur of the courtroom. They are going for blood, Steamy. Give me something, anything, to counter their narrative. Steamy kept her gaze fixed on the empty judge's bench, her face an unreadable mask. You know I cannot, or will not. Apprentice pressed his knuckles white as he gripped his pen, the plastic groaning under the pressure. They have 3 witnesses prepared to testify that you were never in Yemen. The corner of Steamy's mouth tightened almost imperceptibly, the only sign that she had even registered his words. All rise. The bailiff's booming voice silenced the murmur instantly. This court-martial is now in session. The Honorable Captain Lyle presiding. Captain Lyle emerged from his chambers, a stern and imposing man in his mid-60s, whose reputation for strict adherence to military protocol preceded him. He ascended to his elevated seat with deliberate authority, surveying the packed courtroom with evident displeasure at the media circus that had descended upon his domain. Be seated. Let me make one thing perfectly clear. While these proceedings are open to the public, this courtroom will maintain absolute military discipline. Anyone disrupting these proceedings will be removed immediately. His gaze swept across the gallery, silencing the whispering, before settling on the prosecution. Commander Westlake, you may present your opening statement. Westlake rose smoothly, buttoning his jacket with practiced ease, a predatory gleam in his eye. Thank you, Your Honor. The prosecution will prove beyond any reasonable doubt that Lieutenant Commander Severine Blackwood engaged in a calculated campaign of deception. She falsified military records to claim participation in operations she never participated in. She committed stolen valor by wearing decorations she did not earn through legitimate service. She displayed gross insubordination during a classified operation, directly violating orders from superior officers. And most damning of all, through her reckless incompetence and desperate need for recognition, she caused the deaths of 2 American service members who trusted her judgment. As Westlake continued his relentless assault, painting Steamy as an ambitious fraud who manipulated gender politics to claim achievements beyond her capability, a wave of hushed commentary erupted from the gallery. First woman to supposedly earn the trident, someone muttered from the middle rows. Obviously couldn't handle the pressure. Another voice agreed quietly. This is what happens when standards get lowered for political correctness. A third concluded with barely concealed disdain. In the back row, partially obscured by the crowd, a naval intelligence officer in dress blues watched the proceedings with an unusual intensity. His hand moved repeatedly towards the secure phone in his pocket, which seemed to vibrate with incoming messages every few minutes. His expression remained carefully neutral, but his eyes tracked every detail with a focused intensity that bordered on obsession. 3 days of testimony had transformed the courtroom atmosphere from one of morbid curiosity to an almost palpable sense of certainty. The prosecution had paraded a succession of administrative witnesses, each one methodically confirming that official records contained no evidence of CB's claimed operations, qualifications, or decorations. Personnel specialists testified about inexplicable gaps in her service jacket. Training instructors stated that they had no record of her completing the specialized special operations courses necessary to become a SEAL. Intelligence officers confirmed that mission logs from the time periods in question made no mention of her presence. The evidence seemed overwhelming, irrefutable. CB sat through it all with the same rigid composure, but the toll was becoming increasingly visible. Her uniform hung slightly looser at the collar, suggesting a noticeable weight loss. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, evidence of sleepless nights spent in military detention. Yet her posture remained perfect, her face a meticulously crafted mask of controlled neutrality that revealed nothing of her thoughts or emotions. She had not spoken a single word in her own defense. Commander Harrison Drake approached the witness stand with the confident bearing of a man accustomed to respect and unquestioned authority. At 50 years old, his salt and pepper hair and a chest adorned with a dazzling array of ribbons testified to a distinguished career spanning 3 decades. He raised his right hand and swore to tell the truth, his voice ringing with unwavering confidence. Commander Drake, Westlake began, leaning against the prosecution table with calculated casualness. Did Lieutenant Commander Blackwood ever serve under your command in any special operations capacity? Drake's answer came without hesitation. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood served as an intelligence analyst in my command. She was competent in that role, but she consistently attempted to exceed her authority, inserting herself into operational planning where she lacked both the necessary qualifications and the required experience. And regarding the Yemen operation specifically? Westlake prompted, his voice laced with anticipation. Drake's expression hardened into something approaching undisguised disgust. During the Al-Maharwa operation, she directly disobeyed my explicit orders. She abandoned her assigned post to join a forward element where she had absolutely no business being. Her unauthorized presence compromised operational security and directly resulted in unnecessary casualties. 2 good men died because of her arrogance and incompetence. When Apprentice stood for cross-examination, his frustration leaked through his carefully maintained professional demeanor, his voice tight with barely suppressed anger. Commander Drake, what specifically was the objective of the Al-Maharwa operation? That information remains classified. For the precise location of the operation? Classified. The names of the team members allegedly endangered by my client? Classified, for operational security reasons. Apprentice approached the bench, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Your Honor, it is remarkably convenient that every piece of information that might exonerate my client is classified, while everything damaging is somehow freely admissible in open court. Captain Lyle's expression remained impassive, unmoved by Apprentice's impassioned plea. The classification determinations have been made by the proper authorities, Counselor. You may proceed with questions you are permitted to ask. As Apprentice returned to his table, CB's face remained composed, but for a fraction of a second, her eyes lost focus, glazing over as the memories threatened to overwhelm her. In her mind, unbidden images flashed like lightning, blood covering her hands, tacky and warm, the cacophony of radio chatter drowned out by the sustained roar of gunfire, a blinding sandstorm reducing visibility to mere meters, the rhythmic thump of helicopter rotors during an emergency extraction under intense enemy fire. For a moment, memory and present reality blurred together, threatening to shatter the carefully constructed facade she had maintained. She blinked once, forced herself back, returning to the sterile reality of the courtroom. The naval psychologist who testified next delivered, perhaps the most devastating blow to CB's credibility. Speaking with clinical detachment, he referenced psychological evaluations that suggested CB suffered from delusions of grandeur, a compensatory mechanism for gender-based insecurities in a traditionally male-dominated field. It is not uncommon, in my experience, the doctor explained, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses, for individuals who feel marginalized or inadequate to construct elaborate fantasies of exceptional achievement. In Commander Blackwood's case, these fantasies manifested as detailed claims of covert operations and battlefield heroism that thorough investigation has proven simply did not occur. Her overwhelming need for recognition and validation overwhelmed her connection to objective reality. Spectators in the gallery no longer bothered to hide their reactions, the hushed comments carrying clearly through the tense atmosphere of the room. They let her play soldier and people died because of it, someone said too loudly. This is exactly why some roles should remain closed to women, another voice added with cruel certainty. During the afternoon recess, Apprentice cornered CB in a small, windowless conference room. The bland walls and harsh fluorescent lighting only served to emphasize the gravity of their desperate situation. CB, I cannot defend you if you refuse to talk to me. The classified operation records that would prove your innocence. They do not exist anymore, CB interrupted quietly, her voice controlled but carrying an edge of finality. They were purged. Apprentice stared at her in utter disbelief, his face etched with shock. That is impossible. Not even the Secretary of the Navy could authorize. You are asking the wrong questions, Orion. She cut him off, an unexpected intensity burning in her eyes for the first time since the proceedings had begun. Ask yourself, who benefits if I am completely discredited? You are facing dishonorable discharge and possible prison time. CB, let me help you. CB met his gaze directly, unflinching. Some oaths matter more than personal freedom. The courtroom felt undeniably different on what was scheduled as the prosecution's final day of testimony. The simmering tension had crystallized into something sharper, more focused, more dangerous. The media presence had doubled overnight after persistent rumors of irregularities in previous testimony began circulating through both military and journalistic circles. Camera crews jostled for position, sensing that something significant was about to unfold, that the carefully constructed narrative was about to shatter. CB appeared more alert despite yet another night spent in detention. She sat with her spine ramrod straight, her shoulders squared, exchanging brief, whispered conferences with Apprentice as they meticulously reviewed notes from the previous days. The dark circles under her eyes remained, but now there was something else present, a newfound watchfulness, an underlying intensity that suggested she was no longer simply enduring the process, but actively observing and meticulously analyzing everything around her. Commander Westlake paced confidently before the witness stand with the swagger of a matador preparing for the final, decisive thrust, the coup de grace. Chief Petty Officer Talon Riker sat ramrod straight in the witness chair, his carefully rehearsed testimony over the past hour having systematically dismantled what remained of CB's credibility, despite the minor inconsistencies that Apprentice had managed to highlight the previous day. So, to be absolutely clear, Chief Riker, Westlake said, positioning himself strategically so that the gallery could see both his face and CB's stoic profile. At no point during the extraction operation did Lieutenant Commander Blackwood participate in any operational capacity whatsoever. Before Riker could respond, the heavy courtroom doors swung open with deliberate, resounding force. The sound echoed through the silent space like a gunshot, causing conversations to halt mid-sentence as every head turned towards the entrance, their faces reflecting a mixture of surprise and apprehension. 2 naval security officers entered first, moving with practiced efficiency, their eyes systematically scanning the room, identifying potential threats, and assessing the size and disposition of the crowd. The unexpected interruption created an immediate wave of tension that rippled through the gallery. Military court-martial proceedings were considered sacred spaces, governed by strict protocol and ironclad rules. They were simply not interrupted without extraordinary cause. Following the security detail was a figure whose very presence commanded instant attention and unwavering respect. Admiral Allor Kingston, the Chief of Naval Operations, the highest-ranking officer in the United States Navy, and the first woman to ever hold that prestigious position in the service's long and storied history. The 4 stars emblazoned on her shoulder boards caught the fluorescent light as she stepped fully into the courtroom, her dress uniform immaculate, her bearing radiating an undeniable aura of authority and absolute power. Captain Lyle rose automatically from his elevated bench, surprise momentarily cracking through his carefully maintained judicial demeanor. Admiral, this is highly irregular. Protocol requires. Kingston did not acknowledge his words or even glance in his direction. Her focus remained laser-sharp, fixed directly ahead as she walked with measured, unhurried steps toward the defense table where CB sat. The sharp click of her highly polished shoes against the unforgiving floor echoed in the stunned silence, each step seeming to last an eternity. CB rose instantly to attention, the force of muscle memory and years of unwavering training overriding any conscious thought. Her eyes locked forward, her chin lifted, her body assuming the perfect posture drilled into every military member from their very first day of service. Kingston stopped directly in front of her, close enough that CB could see the fine details of her uniform, the weight of her hard-earned ribbons and medals, the unwavering steel in her piercing blue eyes. In the stunning silence that followed, Kingston raised her right hand in a formal, textbook-perfect salute. The gesture carried profound meaning in military culture, a sign of respect reserved only for those who have truly earned it through exceptional service, unwavering dedication, and selfless sacrifice. Without hesitation, CB returned the salute with equal precision, her hand rising smoothly to her brow, holding the position until Kingston slowly dropped hers. Kingston's voice carried through the room without needing amplification, each word precisely enunciated, resonating with an undeniable authority. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood, the President of the United States sends his personal regards and his sincere regret that the specific details of Operation Shadowfall cannot be declassified at this time due to ongoing critical national security concerns. The courtroom erupted in a cacophony of confused murmurs and shocked exclamations. Journalists frantically scribbled notes or feverishly typed on their phones, their minds racing to comprehend the stunning turn of events. Military officers in the gallery exchanged alarmed glances, struggling to process what they were witnessing, desperately trying to make sense of the impossible. Kingston turned to face Captain Lyle, her bearing making it unmistakably clear that she was not requesting permission or seeking approval, but simply informing him of what would happen next. Captain Lyle, I have here an executive order signed by the President of the United States this morning. She handed a thick folder to the bailiff, who delivered it to the visibly shaken judge with trembling hands. These proceedings are hereby suspended effective immediately. Lieutenant Commander Blackwood is being reassigned to critical duties. She will be leaving with me. Westlake lurched to his feet, his previously unshakable confidence crumbling like sand before a rising tide. Admiral, with all due respect, this court has proper jurisdiction over. Kingston cut him off with a glacial glare that could freeze fire. Commander Westlake, your security clearance is hereby revoked, pending a thorough investigation into your conduct. Military police will escort you to processing immediately. 2 MPs moved forward without hesitation towards a stunned Westlake, his face drained of all color as the full implications of Kingston's words crashed down on him like a tidal wave. Commander Drake half rose from his seat in the gallery, a flicker of raw panic evident in his expression, then thought better of drawing attention to himself when Kingston's all-seeing gaze swept across the room. He sank back down, suddenly and intensely fascinated by the intricate details of his own hands. Kingston addressed the entire courtroom, her voice carrying an undeniable air of command and absolute authority. This tribunal was convened based on deliberately falsified evidence as part of a coordinated campaign to discredit an American hero. Those responsible will be identified and prosecuted to the fullest extent of military justice. Drake and Riker exchanged panicked glances across the room, their carefully constructed lies about to be exposed. Riker's hand moved unconsciously towards his incorrectly placed trident pin, then froze when he realized the gravity of his actions, what it would reveal to everyone present. Kingston continued, her tone softening slightly, but losing none of its inherent authority. The operation Lieutenant Commander Blackwood led rescued 17 hostages, including the children of 2 United States senators, from a heavily fortified enemy black site facility. The specific tactical details remain classified at the highest levels of government, but the President has personally authorized me to confirm that her Silver Star citation was earned through extraordinary heroism under fire. She saved American lives at tremendous personal risk. Apprentice looked at Steamy with sudden, dawning comprehension flooding his expression, finally understanding why she had maintained absolute silence, why she had refused to defend herself, even as her career and her very freedom hung precariously in the balance. Even as her career and freedom hung in the balance, she remained at attention, eyes fixed forward, but something fundamental had shifted in her posture, as though an immense, crushing weight had finally been lifted from her weary shoulders. Kingston nodded once to Steamy, a silent acknowledgement of the shared burden they both carried. You are needed at the Pentagon immediately, Commander. A helicopter is waiting on the pad. As Kingston turned towards the exit, Steamy fell into step behind her with practiced precision, the culmination of years of unwavering dedication to duty and honor. The gallery exploded into utter chaos. Journalists shouted questions over each other, their voices a jumbled mess of speculation and desperate inquiries. Officers conferred in urgent whispers, trying desperately to make sense of the dramatic reversal they had just witnessed. Spectators tried desperately to piece together the fragments of information, their minds reeling from the sudden and unexpected turn of events. Captain Lyle banged his gavel repeatedly, shouting for order in a proceeding that had fundamentally transformed in mere minutes. At the courtroom doors, Kingston paused, turning back to address the room one final time, her voice cutting through the noise like a laser. Let this serve as a permanent reminder to everyone present. The very nature of the conflicts we face in the modern world means that our greatest heroes often serve in complete silence, unable to defend themselves, unable to claim the recognition they so richly deserve. Remember that reality before you ever question someone's service or sacrifice. As they exited into the corridor, CB noticed 2 serious-looking officers in civilian suits approaching Commander Drake, their faces grim. Naval Criminal Investigative Service, one of them muttered, flashing his badge. Their eyes met briefly across the distance, and the color drained completely from Drake's face as he finally realized the catastrophic depth of his miscalculation, the devastating consequences that were about to unfold. Outside, reporters shouted questions from behind the hastily erected security barriers, but neither woman acknowledged them as they moved purposefully toward the waiting vehicle that would take them to the helicopter pad, and onward toward whatever came next.